Five, four, three, two, and one. Time for the show. Is everything looking good? Everything's looking as good as it's gonna look. Cool. Congratulations, Panda, on getting Plague Panda. Have I ever called you Panda before? Plague? Panda? Whatever. You know who you are. Um, Congratulations on getting first. You clearly didn't read the box. You and I are now officially, legally engaged. So, better gear up for that. All right. There we go. The music is like slightly there. We make the camera just above the K. That way it has my face. You can see my thingy. You can see Adam over here. Woo! How are ya? I'm having a time. I'm having a trip. I'm happy to be here. Um, how are you? How are you doing today? Yeah. Uh, nah, I need to take these out of my ears because or what I like my brain can't focus on talking and having music. I'm the worst person to talk to at a party. Because I'm like, I either need to be dancing or we need to be far enough away from the music to actually hold a conversation. Um, yeah, no, today was interesting. I had work which was more or less fine. It was just very boring because, yeah, it just was very busy. Um, but I ended up getting like a ton of extra tips and stuff, which was all great. Um, and then after it was so interesting and weird. All right, so like full preface for the rundown of like my entire day. Last night, fell asleep. Woke up a couple of times. One because Merman, who is in here with me because I don't trust him when the cats have food out. Um, Merman woke me up at one point. Hi, buddy. Yeah, I'm talking about you. He woke me up because he wanted attention, I guess. Um, and then I woke up again because I had some sort of like panic stress dream or something. And it's been like a hot minute since I've like woken up from something like that. And the last time that I did ties into today as well. But so that happened, went back to bed, woke up, went to work, realized that on my way to work that my car was out of gas. And so I went to pull in to get gas, as one does, realizing I forgot my wallet at home. So I asked Dorian if he sees my wallet, um, if I mean, I didn't want to ask if he could bring it. I was gonna try and bum like $5 off of some coworkers or something. Um, but yeah, so everybody that was there didn't have cash on them because no one has cash. Um, so I asked Dorian if he could just bring my wallet at his earliest convenience, whatever. So then the day progresses, I end up getting some cash tips, and I tell Dorian, like, oh, you know what? Never mind. It's all fine. Make sure that you get to work safe and yada yada, all good. So work ends, and I'm like, okay, time for me to go get gas before going home. I go get gas. Right next to the gas station that I stop at is a McDonald's. I'm like, I have enough money for both. And this is like fake money because I don't normally have cash. So perfect. So I get gas and then I go and get food. And while I'm getting food, I like. Sorry, buddy. Whatever. That's down there now. When I was getting food, I I start eating and someone is walking past me and they're walking like to the outside area and they just like gasp and run through the door. I'm like, oh, okay, they were getting an important phone call or something. Um, and then I hear one of the workers start shouting, oh my gosh, someone go help them, oh my gosh. I'm like, what is going on? And I look over at her and she's like looking at literally anybody that's seated like in the restaurant. Um, and it's telling them like someone needs to go out there, go help them. They flipped over. I'm like, what? And I'm looking outside and there's a ton of like cars and people congealed in the street. And I like slightly changed my position and a car flipped over. Um, which it like looked like there was some kind of collision and then it got worse from there. Um, so yeah, which was like horrifying to see. And there are people like trying to drag people out of the cars. It was haunting. Um, yeah, which like I stayed for a few minutes to make sure that like not that I could have done any. I mean, I know first aid, but that's literally it. And that's not really going to help if there's like a ton of people swarming this car. Um, but yeah, so I stayed until like the ambulance and stuff got there. Um, then I headed out, and that like I don't know. I do know it's shock. It shocked me. I was in a state of shock. So I drove home. I came inside, like went directly to my room. Was just like, what just happened? Um, and then Merlin came over and reminded me that I still needed to take him to his favorite place, which I'm not gonna say because he's right there, but it rhymes with Lark. Um, yeah, and so the more I like thought about it, the more it just like I've seen a wreck like that before happen in front of me, and that was insanely scary. And so that brought up like a bunch of feelings when I watched that happen. And then I also was in a really bad car accident like 3 years ago, um, which was just awful. And I got hit by people that were fleeing a homicide scene. So yeah, it ended up like totaling my car. Um, it like was not covered by insurance. It was just a whole big mess. I'm still paying for it. Um, yeah, so then it just like made me think about that, and then I started like trying to not trying. I started like mass or over empathizing with the people that were involved in that, which just like put me in like a really downed state because I just started thinking about how like any repercussion that happens after this for the people that were involved in that is awful. And yeah, it just was not good. So after I took Merlin for his, you know, for his go around, um, I just like went in the bathroom and just like stood under hot water for like an hour and was just like, what? Oh, need to get right with myself for a minute. Um, yeah. So that was my day, and that's also why this stream is late. So cool. Yeah. But what are we doing today? Today we're playing Afterward again. I don't know why I said it like that. We're playing Afterward again. Um, yeah, last time we saw Nick and Carlos get married, and today it looks like we are going to be doing more piece by piece. We're going to be going into 2014 Just a Note, 2015 Loose Ends, and I think we're going to try and round out in 2016 with Fondness and maybe do the extra fix. We can go all the way up to 2020 right now, but I don't think I want to do that right now. Well, that's certainly an eventful day you had. I'm sorry that happened to you. It's like, it's just a thing. I appreciate that. I appreciate you. How was your day? What did you do today? Yeah, no, it's funny. I was talking to my coworker right before we left, or I shouldn't say right before we left, like an hour before we left, uh, talking about, I forget exactly what it was. Oh, it was because, yeah, a couple days ago, I was trying to like rush around. That way, Dorian and I could go on like a nice date. Nice date. It was a very good date. I appreciated the date. It wasn't like to a fancy, classy place or anything. Um, but yeah, I was trying to like make sure that I was ready by the time he got home. And so like I was rushing around at work, like raced home, got inside, was trying to like rush to get Merlin all like harnessed up and whatever. And instead of saving myself any time, I like instantly tripped and shattered one of my like glass reusable bottles. So there was glass everywhere. I'm like, well, this just added time instead of made it more likely that I'm going to be ready for him to get off work. Um, and so my coworker and I were talking about that, and she was like, oh, well, just the idea of like, everything happens for a reason, including the things that make you late or like when you stub your toe or whatever, because something else would have happened if that didn't happen. And I was telling her about the other day, I was listening to Sarah Silverman, and she was kind of reiterating the same sentiment but a little bit different, where it's like don't place positive or negative value on events that happen to you because you don't know the outcomes of those events. And Sarah Silverman gave like this proverb, I guess would technically be. Sorry, I'm like, you're fine, you're all good, I'm late, I'm late. Yeah, that's good advice. She gave like this proverb about a man who owned a horse, and the horse ran away. And his neighbors were like, "Oh my God, that's so terrible! Like, you must be so devastated. That's awful that your horse ran away." And the guy was like, maybe." And then the guy's horse came back with three more horses. So now this guy has four horses. And his neighbors were like, "Oh, you must be so happy. You must be so elated. Like, you have four horses now. This is great. This has to be amazing for you." And the guy was like, maybe. Um, and then the three horses trampled his son and broke his leg. And the neighbors were like, "Oh my God, you must be so devastated. Your son's leg is broken." And the guy was like, maybe. And then their country started a draft. And because the son's leg was broken, he wasn't drafted. So the neighbors were like, "Oh my God, your son is safe. Like, you must be so happy." The guy was like, maybe. And it just goes on and on and on and on and on about, just don't associate a positive or negative value with things that happen. Just live and feel how you feel because you don't know the full outcome of what happens, of why things happen the way that they happen. Those are some neighbors. It's funny. I know that that's like a proverbial story. Um, but when I was originally listening to it, it did make me think about this time that my neighbor's horses did actually get out and wandered into our like neighborhood and our property and stuff. I came downstairs and my dad was like, "There's a horse in the backyard." I'm like, fuck. And lo and behold, there was a full ass horse in the backyard. Yep, belonged to the guy down the street. Horse that just got out of his stable. But yeah. Anyways, that was my day. That's what happened to me. And then yeah, what we're doing. So let's actually go ahead and get into the game. All right, and now I can actually have the music in. And we're gonna go ahead and not have the music combat me and not have it playing twice. And be good. All right, cool. So, like I said, last time we saw Carlos and Nick get married. And now we're going to do another piece by piece. We're going to try and go through these ones. I don't think I'm ready to get into 2020. We might also do the extra ficlets. So let's do the, I think, third piece by piece. Tabloid. Piece by piece tabloid. Point of view, Carlos. Approximate word count, 1,000. Carlos and Nick find an interesting tabloid article. Okay. Let's get into that. Also, for anybody that is watching this either now or in the future, this game does have a warning that it touches on very serious subject matter that might be triggering. It talks about like family dynamics, talks about relationships. It does have a lot of like sexual connotations and stuff. So you have been warned. I too might be triggering because I have been nothing but triggered for the last like maybe 2 weeks. So I might also end up being the problem. So good luck with that. Ooh. Sunday, July 20th, 2014. Babe? Hmm? Carlos looks over the selection of candy bars by the register, trying to decide if he feels like caramel or nuts today. I feel like there are so many candy bars where those are. Wait, doesn't he not like caramel? Palettes change. But there are so many candy bars, like a Snickers. Just wait and read and continue reading, Patrick, before deciding that he really wants both and grabs a Snickers. He used to not like caramel. Ah, canonically, something changed in his palate. Have you seen this? Carlos turns to see his husband frowning at the racks of tabloids by the register. What, was Michael Jackson spotted in Florida again? He moves next to Nick, his arm slipping around his waist as he follows his gaze to the tabloid Nick is staring at. James Bennett spotted attending gay San Francisco wedding, reads the headline. Who are the grooms? Okay. Dude, the photo on the cover is blurry, as if taken from afar with a telephoto lens, but it's clearly them standing at their makeshift altar in the. I'm gonna not get these correct. Proceeded. Take two. Standing at their makeshift altar at the Presidio Park, with a large headshot of James that Carlos recognized from a previous tabloid article. Something about an affair with Dan, overlaid in the corner. Well, that's good that that James got some like acclaim. He had enough milk duds to change his mind, I guess. It's all of those like movie nights that they had. He isn't sure if he should be amused or horrified. Okay, I'm interested. You have my attention. I would feel rather proud if I had like a. I'd be happy if I had like a C-list celebrity at my wedding, and it was like a big hoopla in a tabloid. Especially if it's a tabloid like right next to the checkout stand, like because then it's just trash, and then I can see what people want to say about me, knowing nothing about me. Nick apparently chooses amusement because his face morphs into a grin. I don't know about you, but they definitely caught my good side. Carlos flicks through the rack. You think we'd get a discount if we bought all of them? He's grinning now too, wondering what kinds of things he could do with the copies. We're giving Adam one for his birthday next month, right? Carlos isn't sure he wants to wait that long. We have the key to his apartment. Why don't we tape a copy to his bathroom mirror? Nick smirks. Maybe we should go see if any of the other lanes have additional copies, just in case. Carlos watches his husband walk off to the other checkout lanes as he starts loading their groceries into the belt. He's definitely sending one to Dan. Oh my goodness. Pat, I like when trash tabloids talk trash about me. Yes. Although I don't think I've ever been in a tabloid. Um, I have been published, not in a tabloid, but yes, Dorian was written about in I think his school paper, and we have that framed because it was for him winning a uh, a film festival. Like he won the whole film festival. Later, Carlos settles into the couch at home and grabs a copy, pulling it open to the article. Nick sits next to him, maneuvering his head between Carlos's arm and the paper, and setting it on Carlos's chest. Famous heartthrob actor James Bennett was spotted in San Francisco during the weekend of July 12th, attending a wedding with his mysterious and elusive boyfriend, or maybe husband, Chris, in the in the historic Presidio district of the city. He reads, finding the writing surprisingly tolerant. Our unnamed source also claims unnamed source. It's Dan. Our unnamed source also claims that the writer Dan Carlton, famous for his hit series 50 Things, and uh, and in town for a book tour, was also in attendance. That's because Dan was the informant. Oh, nice. Yes, it was very exciting. It was actually like right after I met him, so it was still during the whole Panini thing. So no one could physically go, but I got to watch like virtually. Um yeah, and after it was so weird. Like they showed the film festival and then they were like, "Here's who's in the running for these awards." All right, good night. It was so anticlimactic. And then they had like a different link that you could go to that pretty much just the students, I guess, went to. Um, that announced the winners. So I didn't actually get to like see him win in that like moment. But yeah, it was still super cool. Dan's gonna be a get put that. Take two. Dan's going to be upset he got second billing, Nick says, and Carlos can tell he's smirking without seeing his face. You may recall our previous bombshell exclusive with photographers of the two of them in with photographs of the two of them in Los Angeles, apparently engaged in a lovers' quarrel. I do remember seeing that on the stands, Nick says, contemplative. I wonder what the story behind it was. Probably something like Dan showing up in the city and stalking James, and James not appreciating it. Carlos says, remembering how much Dan and James didn't get along in undergrad, and wondering, in retrospect, if he should have seated them at different tables at the wedding. Keep reading, babe, Nick says, and Carlos wants to point out that Nick has eyes too, but he kind of likes speaking the ridiculousness out loud. Rumors also abound that the handsome actor and his longtime boyfriend finally tied the knot earlier this year in an intimate families only event. Could this new wedding have rekindled the long buried feelings between James and his ex lover Dan? He laughs at the thought of that, and Nick chuckles. Imagine the irony if these new nuptials marked a sudden end to James's wedded bliss. After spending even 5 minutes with them, I could tell you there's absolutely nothing there. Nick chuckles again. I know that enemies turn lovers or sexual tension or whatever is a thing, but there was absolutely none of that, at least from James's end. I don't know, baby. Are we homewreckers now? We we should have known that Dan's charm would make him irresistible. Nick smirks at him. Keep reading. Our source has obtained exclusive photos of the gay wedding and of a tearful Chris storming out of their shared apartment. What? Sure enough, there's a picture of Chris next to the paragraph, although Carlos isn't sure he'd call it storming out. Chris just looks like he's drawn inward in the way Carlos is familiar from undergrad, when he just wants to get somewhere quickly without being bothered about it. Same. Same. The rest of the article is just rampant speculation about the relationship between James and Dan, and who he and Nick could be. Okay. See, that's the part that I would be interested in. I would want to know who they thought I was, who they think I am, and how they would know James, including additionally blurry photos of the two of them and of the restaurant where they'd had their reception. Even though the grain and even though the grain in bad quality, he thinks it's easy to tell how happy he is in the photos. Oh, apparently you're a millionaire tech founder, babe. Nick turns to him, putting putting on a put out face even as he grins. I'm pretty sure lying about your hidden stash of money is a breach of our marriage contract. Hmm. Well, apparently you're my pool boy. So maybe you'd better shut your mouth and get to cleaning the pool. Nick turns in his arms and looks around the apartment. We have a bathtub. Is that close enough? Carlos kisses him. There's no one I'd rather be married to than you, baby. Nick laughs. Not even your pool boy? Not even my non existent pool boy. Hmm. Well, that's fortunate for me at least. So when's the dinner? Carlos laughs and kisses him again, leaving him on the couch as he heads to the kitchen to start the food. That's cute. Tabloids. Owen Wilson spotted giving massage. I have changed my hair from the Owen Wilson style. Thank you very much. It was like the Justin Bieber for a long, long time. Not because I enjoyed Justin Bieber, but because I am lazy. And Justin Bieber's style was let it hang in front of your face. And it just so happened that I was blonde. Just a note. Point of view, Carlos. Approximate word count, 4,000. Warning, explicit sex. And Bob, if there's anything that you missed, give me a heads up. Nick goes to a conference and leaves Carlos some notes. Ooh. I love doing that. I hope not. I hope not too. You can also skip this chapter if you're worried. I'm not skipping anything. It's not plot relevant. It's all relevant, sir. Hush your face. No, but that's something that I thoroughly enjoy doing whenever I'm like going to be away for a minute. I like leaving like cute notes or stuff like that. It's a cute, fun way of like being there without being there, but not in a creepy way, in like a cute, congenial way. Just a note. Ah, Southwest. One sec, checking the game scripts now. Well, I take it nothing bad is going to happen in the airport. Although, I mean, it's not technically the Mile High Club if it's not in the airplane. So, would almost not be worth it then. Sunday, October 5th, 2014. I still can't believe you're going to Hawaii without me. Dorian's at work right now. Otherwise he'd be getting huffs and puffs from me right now. Um, in relation to my earlier story about me getting into a horrible car accident, that happened while Dorian was in Hawaii without me. Isn't it fun when things line up? The start is definitely fine. I still can't believe you're going to Hawaii without me. Carlos tries to look put out as he hands Nick his carry-on bag, but he's actually really happy that Nick's getting to make the trip. Nick looks guilty. I still think it would have been fine, babe. We could see if there's any last-minute tickets, or do you know how expensive that would be? I mean, you guys are probably doing fine. Like, you legit are a doctor. But a last-minute ticket to Hawaii is like $500 for coach. Granted, this is Southwest, not really coach, but you know. Carlos shakes his head, realizing that his teasing had landed badly. No, you were right. If I'm going to be in Hawaii, I'm going to want to spend time with you, and you're going to be spending most of your time sitting in a room learning about lesions and leukemia. We'll just have to go again together sometime when you're not all tied up with conference obligations. Which was also what Dorian and I came to the conclusion of that we have to go when he's going to be free to enjoy the islands with me. And also not right before an eruption happens. Because he literally like left the island and then an eruption happened. Nick smiles and kisses him. We'll definitely have to do that. Have a good time, Carlos says as Nick pulls his boarding pass out of his pocket. I'll miss you. Nick takes Carlos's hand and squeezes it. I'll miss you too. Oh yeah, there's some questionable words, but no outright sex. You know me, I'm good at good place wording things. Carlos watches as Nick makes his way through the security line. Not sure he likes the way he already misses the feeling of Nick's hand in his hand, or Nick's lips on his lips. Still, not later? Sunday, October 5th. Carlos realizes he opens the door to their condo, but it'll be the first time he and Nick have been apart since moving in together. I'm curious if when Dorian went to Hawaii, if that was the first time we had been apart since living together. I think it was. Because I think I went on their next family vacation. um, the two of them have been apart before, sometimes for even longer than a week, such as over the holidays. But he chalks it up to the fact that they're married now, and the nuptials had kicked off something of a second honeymoon period for the two of them, beyond the actual honeymoon itself, abbreviated to a weekend trip to Napa because of Nick's residency obligations. They'd had a hard time keeping their hands off each other recently. Aw, that's cute. Also, today I like I guess was the ending of a couple's honeymoon, which was very nice. They seemed very happy, very much in love. They were very, very cute. Um, but yeah, they were definitely like, nope, as soon as we're done here, it's like back to the real world. Like we're checking out of the resort, picking up the kids, going to work, all the things. So I was glad that they obviously thoroughly enjoyed the session because on top of, you know, paying for it, they also gave me a really good tip. So he moves to hang up his coat when he notices a sticky note on the wall next to the hooks. He pulls it off and smiles at Nick's messy handwriting. I'm thinking of you. Uh, it's such little things like that that I'm like, that's like peak romance. Just he holds the note to his chest, tears in his eyes. Later, he finds another note as he opens the drawer with the silverware to grab a spoon for his yogurt. This one is a question. What are you eating? Oh my goodness. When I was like getting ready before stream, I was listening to the Handsome podcast, and Mae Martin had talked about how her girlfriend, uh, their girlfriend, how their girlfriend like had gotten a book about how to be romantic, and this book is insane. Um, they read a couple of things of like a couple of the advice bits of things to do to like boost your romance. And one of the things was to put a sticky note on your TV that says, turn me on instead. That is wild, but I will be trying that. He runs his finger over the ink lines, remembering how Nick had insisted Carlos help double check his suitcase contents earlier in the morning while Nick ran around the place. He told Carlos he was grabbing things, but Carlos realizes now that he'd been hiding notes in various places and wonders how many he'll find before Nick returns. I'd be curious how many I don't find. Like, just in a month, I open up like a cabinet or something, like, oh, well then, is this new or was this from your trip? He pulls out his phone, deciding not to try and find them all at once and spoiling whatever timing Nick might have been trying to establish. He knows Nick's probably in the air by now, but he sends a text anyway. Greek yogurt and blueberries. Oh, I love Greek yogurt. He slides his phone back into his pocket and sits on the dining room table with his yogurt, smiling now. Still, by the time Adam comes over that afternoon, he'd found 3 more notes. One in the shower, hey sexy. One in the cabinet with the glasses. Drink 8 or so glasses of water a day. Or so. Technically, the amount of water you should drink is half your weight in ounces. And when I tell people that, they freak out. But what that means is that, like, I weigh about 190. So half of that is 95 is 95. So I should drink 95 ounces of water a day. That's how you should be doing your water intake every day. And one in his laptop. Check your email. That had led to a suggestive selfie of Nick with his shirt pulled up as he smirks at the camera. Okay. Carlos had needed some alone time with that one. He shows Adam the first note as Adam walks through the door, and Adam laughs and ruffles Carlos's hair. Dude, that's adorable. It reminds me of when he sent me home with a note for you when you two were newly dating. I found some other ones too, Carlos says, trying not to think of the fact that the last one is currently sitting on his bedside table, streaked with his I don't know how he found the time to hide them all this morning. Well, I imagine you were distracted, dude. And you know how efficient Nick can be when he sets his mind to something. I do. Carlos smiles at the thought. Are you sure you want to cook for us tonight? I'm happy to go out somewhere with you instead. Carlos nods. Yeah, it'll be nice to cook for just the 2 of us again. I was thinking maybe an early dinner, and then we could go out for a long walk or something. Sounds like a plan, dude. Anything I can do to help? Do you want to cut the veggies? I figured I'd just do some chicken and salad. Adam nods, washing his hands at the kitchen sink before grabbing a cutting board. He laughs and pulls a note off the wood, handing it to Carlos. I guess this one is for me? I'm curious what it says, considering where my brain instantly goes is that it's just a slab of wood. Hi, Adam. What are you and Carlos making? Dude, now I want to try and find a note intended for you just so I can rub it in his face that he predicted something wrong. Carlos says, more impressed than he wants to let on. He pulls out his phone and texts Nick. I mean, that is like an impressive level. If you can kind of predict where even like your friends are going to be. Chicken and salad. And Adam says hi. He says because he knows Adam would. Adam grabs a knife. Want me to help look for more notes? Carlos shakes his head. No, I want to find them organically. Plus, it doesn't count if you find one intended for you. He grabs some tomatoes and finds another note in the vegetable drawer. Eat your fruits and veggies! And sets to preparing the chicken as Adam pulls together the salad and sits at the dining table watching him. Should I do something for him, Chico? Carlos feels bad that he hadn't prepared anything so thoughtful for Nick. I mean, people that do gestures like this do them because they enjoy like the happiness that it's going to give you. And the fact that it is like a game. It's like in stream, not my stream, and I think Silfrin's stream, the other day I was talking about how like I love giving gifts and my goal is to like bring tears to people, not because I expect to get like an immaculate gift back, but because that is just something I like doing. Oh my goodness, okay. Now I know what it is. At least I think I know what it is. we're going to go ahead and take my mic off for a minute. All right, better, worse, or about the same? Yeah, my mic arm is better, I think. As long as it's not worse, I suppose. Yeah, I've had to mess with it a little bit because somehow my gain got like thrown all the way down. Um, and then I know that like my mic arm has been being really weird. And then also I think something's up with like all the cords underneath my desk. Which also is a thing that I should do. I've been putting it off because we're gonna be moving anyway, so why go through the hassle of like doing all of my cords right now? It's not worse. Okay. Maybe I'll end up doing that later tonight or tomorrow before my next stream. Because yeah, I know that like particularly with the mic that I have, if there are like cross chords, it creates a bunch of weird stuff. I recorded like a full chapter like 3 times over of a book only to realize that like the entire audio was wasted because it had like a weird metallic-y ting to it. Oh, it's back, but same as before. Oh no. Give me just 1 second, because I'm pretty sure I know what this is. All right, testing, testing, testing. All right, hopefully that fixed it. Yeah, this mic is a little old. And B, it's very particular in that like if it crosses wires with anything, it's a nightmare. Hence the story about me recording a chapter 3 times over to find out that it was all useless. Better you think. Oh, nope. You're fine. You're totally understandable. Give me 2 seconds. I at least want to hear it. Oh, nope. You're fine. You're totally understandable. 2 seconds. I at least want to hear it. I hear it, but it's not a nightmare noise. So, for now, I'm also going to try and bump this down a little bit because I realized that that was hella high after I replugged in my mic. Whatever. That'll just go on the list of things that I need to do. I need to honestly just like now it's worse, but it's fine. Streaming is hard. Streaming is very hard. Hmm. Okay. If it gets worse than what I just heard, please let me know and I might call this our last chapter. Um which is disappointing. I have cut the last two streams of this short and I really wanted to get okay. Whoa. If it gets that is hell of a delay. Um yeah, if it gets worse than this, then I might want to call it just because I don't want to have a stream and a VOD that sounds atrocious. Um, and who knows? Maybe I'll end up streaming this again. Hi, buddy. Streaming this again tomorrow if I end up having to cut this. But anyways, we press forward until it gets worse. Hopefully, it gets better. Fingers crossed. If it's going up and down. Oh, I'm an idiot. There's a storm right now. That could also be part of it. Yeah. There's like a thunderstorm happening right now. And like the noise won't be affecting it, but our power lines are old AF. So there is a chance that it's messing with some of my system stuff. And also, if I disappear very suddenly, that's probably the reason why. Anyway, pressing onward. What do you want to do? I don't know, just something to let him know I'm thinking of him. But I think anything I mail might not arrive in time. He throws that, I mean, you want to let him know you're thinking about him. Phones and computers are a thing. Just saying. He throws the chicken in the oven and washes his hands. You could call this hotel for help. I'm sure they're used to remote requests like this. Carlos really likes that idea. I could ask them to deliver some food with a note. I wonder if they do creme brulee. Maybe something a little more stable so they don't have to time when so they don't have to time when he'll be back. Adam suggests maybe a box of chocolates or something. That's smart, Chico. Carlos says as his phone buzzes, pulls it out to find texts from Nick. Just landed. Sounds like a good breakfast and a nice dinner. Tell Adam hi for me again. Nick says hi. Carlos says, tucking his phone back into his pocket and sitting at the table next to Adam. Again. Well, tell him hi back for me. Carlos nods, his mind returning to the chocolates. I wonder if I could have something waiting for him at reception when he checks in at the hotel. He just landed. Worth a try, dude. That is kind of a cute, neat idea. Carlos manages to arrange a box of shortbread cookies and a note for Nick, and sits down for some smash with Adam as they wait for the chicken to finish baking. There's another note on the Wii U controller. So I will say, I do work at a resort. I only work in the spa, but I know that we get like request accommodation stuff like this. And it's actually really fun to like do these. So, um, if anybody ever wants to like do this, never think that you're like making a chore for the people working at the hotel or like adding something to their day. This is something that's like so out of the ordinary that it's actually very fun to do. Play Captain Falcon in my honor. Carlos shakes his head and shows it to Adam, who grins. You're not going to turn down a request like that from your husband, are you? Hmm. My husband can play Captain Falcon for himself when he gets back, Carlos says, nevertheless selecting Captain Falcon at the character selection screen. Pikachu looks very different, Adam comments as he selects the Duck Hunt dog. He got really buff and more human shaped and blue. Pikachu? I don't know what you're talking about, Chico. Oh, because he's playing as Captain Falcon and he normally plays as Pikachu. Got it. Got it. My brain. It took me a second. I understand everything now. They get in a couple rounds before the food's ready, and they're halfway through the meal when Carlos's phone rings with a FaceTime call. Nick looks at him affectionately when Carlos answers, "Babe, you got me cookies?" Carlos blushes. "I've been finding your notes all day. I just wanted to do something for you too." "Well, they're delicious, and I love you too," Nick says, and Carlos remembers the note he'd asked to be included had simply said, "I love you." Adam wouldn't approve of you spoiling your dinner with treats. Carlos couldn't resist teasing him, even though it's somehow a huge relief to see his face on screen. "Speak for yourself, dude," Adam says, throwing an arm over Carlos's shoulder and crowding onto the screen. "How was the flight, Nick?" "Smart, smart. Make your presence known during a FaceTime between husbands who are experiencing being apart for the first time, and one is at home and the other is alone in a hotel room. Make your presence known. You might regret not doing that." Long, and they didn't serve any food, so the cookies were especially nice to have upon arrival. "I was just going to head out and find dinner, but I wanted to call first." He stops and seems to think. "Although I guess it'd be a late lunch. I'm not used to flying west." "That just means the restaurants won't be busy," Carlos says, feeling a sudden pang of longing at the thought of the two of them eating dinner apart. Oh, even though that too isn't necessarily a new thing. Nick stands from his position, sitting on the hotel bed. "That's true. I'll talk to you tonight?" "Definitely. Adam and I were going for a walk after dinner, but call whenever you're free." "I miss you," Nick says, looking at Carlos longingly. "I miss you too," Carlos says back, staring at the screen for a bit after Nick hangs up. Adam removes his arm from Carlos's shoulder and returns to his food, and then pulls Carlos back to reality. "The chicken's really good," Adam says, and Carlos appreciates that Adam isn't taking the opportunity to tease him. "Thanks, Chico. Bob, you making me nervous." "You make me nervous with the hidden sill." I'm hoping that's in reference to making oneself known in a when a video call is happening, and not more about my voice. Uh, you know, you know. Saying "would you rather" hide something else, immediately followed by a dancing pickle icon, seems rather suggestive, sir. Still, Sunday, October 5th. Nick has good timing, calling that night just as Carlos is climbing into bed. "Hey, babe." "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Sure. You realize I'm reading what I assume is a very textual relationship thing that you wrote, sir. You can't hide the fact that you know innuendos when I'm literally reading this. Hey, babe. Hey. Carlos smiles at him, sitting up against the headboard with his phone in his lap, despite the angle being unideal for the video call. You guys are married. It really doesn't matter. I mean, there is something to say about like I like when I can send, you know, a picture of myself that looks good to Dorian. Um, but also, I I feel like if we had a video call and he had like this Ursula angle on me or something, it would not matter. It wouldn't make me the least bit self conscious. In you Windows, are you saying you have a virus? In you Windows. Ha 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 ha. Oh. Wow. See, and then you throw that out there. The wordplay, sir. So you're too good. You're too good at it to not know. How was dinner or lunch or what? How was eating? How was your meal? Hello. Pretty good, Nick says, smirking, and Carlos doesn't understand why until Nick seems to set his phone on a table and pulls off his shirt. I'm just getting ready for bed now. I figured I'd go to sleep a little early tonight and get an early start tomorrow. Fucking tease. Carlos says as he watches Nick, but there's absolutely no bite behind it. Hmm. Nick laughs. I have no idea what you're talking about, babe. Then he smirks again and pulls off his pants. Oh. Hmm. And real quick, because Bob wasn't super certain last time. Okay, no, we're fine. Calling before you get changed for bed. I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe I'll pull an Adam and go to bed in my underwear tonight. Carlos knows it's teasing, but he blushes at the thought of Nick wearing so little between the crisp hotel sheets. He decides turnabout is fair play. I found your note in my laptop. Ooh. I will say, slightly separated from this, the bit uh, wearing so little between the crisp hotel sheets. So that couple, why are hotel sheets so nice? Hold your horses, buddy. Hold your horses. Um, so the couple that was celebrating the end of their honeymoon, in the spa today, they like we left that way they could derobe for the treatment. And when we got back inside, my gal, as soon as I like walked over to her, she was like, "Can I share a secret with you guys?" And we're like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" She was like, "You guys have the worst beds here." And I could tell in both my brain and my like co-therapist's brain, we thought that they meant the table because everybody calls our tables beds. Um, but yeah, that's where our brains instantly went. And then we realized that they were staying like at the resort itself. So we were like, "Oh, you like in your room?" They're like, "Yeah, they're just awful." Like at like 4 a.m. this morning, we decided to like sleep on the floor. Like we just grabbed a bunch of the pillows and cushions and stuff and like made a bed or like a nest on the floor. I'm like, "Oh, well, you definitely can leave feedback at the end of your stay. I'm sure that they would love to hear that." Um, so that's just what that made me think about. I'm like, yeah, In okay, so Heavy did this at a hotel in the UK. Did what? um, yeah, no, like most of the hotels that I stay at, I feel are great, except for the one time that I accidentally stayed at the Bates Motel in Arizona. That was terrible. But for the most part, like I I think that they're quite magnificent, but also I am cheap. I'm cheap, and I get, you know, I stay at like uh, Super Eights and Motel Sixes and stuff. And granted, Motel Sixes are a little, uh, um, but yeah, I feel like anything that has like Wyndham on it, like those are generally pretty good hotels. Especially if they're on like the lower end for some reason. Slept on the floor because he couldn't stand the bed. He needed firm mattresses, and we stayed at one with a super soft mattress that also had bags where people had slept in it before. So he sank down into the mattress and just couldn't fall asleep like that. Gross. That I okay, so if there were like indents in the mattress, I feel like that's when I would call. I would legitimately call the front desk. I mean, it was clean. That's fine, but I feel like that's when I would call the front desk and be like, yo, I think you need to change out your mattress." Cuz like that's honestly probably pretty easy to miss if you're just like cleaning and stuff, or to like make a note of but not actually get it to someone in time before another guest checks in. Um, but yeah, that's like someone could technically claim that their back got injured by your mattress. That's like a safety concern. Um, yeah, gross. Also, you see, he slept on the floor. Did you not? Or were you not with him, or did you guys have separate beds? Because like low key, don't get me wrong. So not married life. Dorian and I sleep in the same bed. Except when we're on vacation. When we're on vacation, we get our own beds, and that's very nice. I loved the bed. I like softer beds anyway. Good to know. Mm. Yeah, I feel like I like firmer beds. Um, but I think that's also stemming from the fact that like I can't stand our mattress right now, and I feel like it's because it's like I sink into it too much. Um, which doesn't necessarily have to be that it's because it's super soft. It might have to be with the fact that it's just old, because you're not supposed to have a mattress for longer than X amount of time. And yeah, there's a lot of math that goes into the amount of time that a mattress should be used. And I think we have worn this mattress's use. At home, we compromised by getting a firm mattress and a cushioned mattress topper, and we're both happy. Oh, okay. I like that. See, that's good compromise. I feel like Dorian and I kind of are like the same, where we have different mattress styles, different comfort styles. Also, same thing with like our couches. Like, I got us like a fancy pants $2,000 couch, and it is firm as the Dickens. And then when his parents came to visit, right after we moved here, they were at like a flea market or like thrift warehouse or something, and they got us a couch, which was a very nice gesture but also kind of strange. They got us a couch for like $70 or something, I think. And it is like the cushiest, like you sink right into it, it just eats you on up. You're there because you're going to be a potato for a couple of hours just watching TV. um and yeah, you can see our definite different styles. Uh, oh yeah, our couch is super firm too, but he used it a lot more than I do, so that's fine. Potato couches. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's kind of nice because now we have two couches. So whenever I want to like sit on something firm, because I also like working on the couch sometimes. Granted, my laptop's busted. So I haven't really been able to do that for a hot minute, but it's nice when I can be like out in the living room watching TV or something and then like writing a script or, doing whatever. Um, and I have like, I don't know, when I'm in or on something firm, it puts me in more of like a position of like getting work done as opposed to like a potato couch where like if I know that we're going to be just sort of lounging for a bit, then I'm more okay with like using his couch. I don't know. Anyway, these two boys are getting hot and heavy. Let's get back into that. Oh, that's right. This started because of the terrible beds apparently at the resort. Yeah, it works, and Nick seems to blush at that, even though he's currently standing in a hotel room on a video call wearing even less than he was in the photo. Yeah. Carlos grabs the sticky note and holds it up in front of the camera. Nick squints at the screen, seemingly confused before realization sets in. Oh. He takes a deep breath. God, you're so attractive, baby. Carlos stares, transfixed, at his husband. Oh. I know this is supposed to be like a little bit more spicy, but also just like, so cute. I know I'd already talked about this like last game or earlier in this game, or perhaps all throughout Yags. Um, where just like I love the moments of just like realizing how lucky you are to have your partner. It's great. I know something we can do right now, Nick says, voice voice rough now as he seems to move the phone to the nightstand and settles into bed, still dressed only in his underwear. Carlos is pretty sure he knows what Nick has in mind. Nope, and it goes dark. Carlos catches his breath afterwards, his vision blurry as he stares at Nick on the phone. Satisfied? I miss you already, Carlos says. Feels a bit pathetic given they'd been apart for not much longer than a usual workday, but not being able to touch Nick at the end of the day is unusual enough that it still gets to him. I miss you too, babe, but we should probably both go to bed. I do understand that. Like, I need copious amounts of alone time, but the second I'm not able to, like, when I don't have a choice in being around Dorian, I I'm like so not good. And then I act like this, and I'm like, I miss you, I love you, thinking about you, just like any chance that I can. Carlos nods. Have a nice conference day tomorrow. Thanks, babe. I love you. I love you too, Carlos says, and Nick smiles before the call disconnects. Carlos, despite doesn't bother getting dressed, instead just clicking off the bedside lamp and grabbing Nick's pillow. It still smells like him, and Carlos holds it close to him, imagining it's his husband as he drifts off into a decent sleep. Oh, I don't sleep very decently when I'm by myself too. That's also a fun thing. But that also is like other reasons. Those are such nice moments. I didn't think physical touch was a big thing to me until I got so used to having hubby physically around all the time. The pandemic made it so much worse since we both started working from home full time. Took my second of took my brain a second to realize what you were saying. But yeah, so then when that went away, you couldn't have all of that time being around each other. Yes. I was with a terrible person during the pandemic. Right up until I met Dorian. And yeah, I am sad. Like, this is a weird side effect that the pandemic had on me, where like if Dorian and I have a couple of days where like it's just us, especially because like they're was a good chunk of time where like Dorian didn't need to work, so he was just doing like streaming and YouTube and all of that stuff and making like some like I was the breadwinner and he was the better winner off of doing that. Um and so like we got multiple days of like just being together. Um and because of the pandemic, like I get caught in these like I don't know, loops of thought about like I wish that we had met a little bit sooner. That way like we could have spent the pandemic together and we could have had time of just being around each other and yeah. It's weird. It's a weird thing. Um yeah, it's weird when he leaves for work now. Aww. I feel that. It's very strange like right now. I don't know what time it is. Yeah, Dorian is at work, and even though he's been working for a minute now, um, it still is like weird sometimes to like come home and he's not here. Um, yeah. Hmm. Relationship dynamics and when they have to change because of circumstance in the world. Wednesday, October 8th. Carlos finds a few more notes over the next couple days, including in his underwear drawer. So hot. Attached to his beard trimmer. I've hmm, yeah, I think that's something of Dorian's I need to raid soon. I need to like start fixing my mustache and my beard a little bit. Attached to his beard trimmer. I haven't told you recently how much I like your beard. And in the drawer with his toys that he found while on a call with Nick. Nick had laughed at his reaction, then put on his authoritative voice and told Carlos exactly what to do. That had left Carlos particularly blissed out afterwards, even long after Nick had hung up. Ooh. Uh, but he's still surprised by a note as he digs through the drawer in Nick's nightstand Tuesday evening, searching for a spare phone charger cable to take to the office the next day. Snooping, are we? That's funny and cute. And also, I'm pretty sure I could tell you what's in Dorian's nightstand. I think. Hmm. Makes you wonder, kinda. The note details a rather explicit request, and Carlos shivers at the thought. He considers obeying immediately, but decides to get Nick back, instead waiting until after they'd talked that night to take the picture, despite already being satiated by that time. Then he looks up the conference schedule and waits until the next day to send it, timing it with a set. Uh, uh, timing it with a session that Nick had been speaking to him about with excited anticipation before putting his phone away for the rest of the working day. I'm not going to say a lot. I will say this whole thing right here, doing this to your partner, very fun. he pull, he pulls it out again on his way home to find a text and a later missed call from Nick. I hate you. He laughs and sends back a text, assuming that Nick is in another session. Love you too. Nick calls on the phone as as opposed to their usual FaceTime, as he's walking in the door of their condo. That was mean, Nick says, as he sounds more amused than upset, and the sound of conversations in the background tells Carlos that Nick's just stepping aside for a moment. Carlos grins. I was searching for a phone cable. I needed to take one into work today, and worried that I'd forget it there. And I just realized that I did. So I wouldn't be able to. So I won't be able to charge tonight. Top dresser drawer by my socks, Nick says, and Carlos remembers that Nick keeps a basket of various small things there for some reason. I really am Nick. Um, Yes, on top of knowing where just about like everything is, I do have like a basket of various small like cords and things and whatever. And usually it's different chargers to different things. Um, yeah. Should I call you Nick now? Hmm. Hatchless Edward. You know, as interesting as it would be, A, you already have a nickname for me, and B, specifically with you and I like the whole Bob and Patrick thing, mostly because SpongeBob and Patrick. I think it's very funny. I thought about that the other night when we were going to bed watching the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, and it made me audibly laugh. I have no idea what you're talking. About to. I didn't even finish reading that. Basket for very small things for some reason. But you're trying to distract me. You did that on purpose. I have no idea what you're talking about, Carlos says, sitting on the couch. I did what you asked. Ooh! Ooh! You have no idea how much I'm waiting for the end of these sessions today so I can go back to my room and look properly at it. Nick's voice is rough, and Carlos suddenly realized that he hadn't considered that part. Sorry, he says, actually apologetic now. I wanted to tease you, but didn't think about the fact that you'd have a lot more of your day to get through first. Oh no, that's when it's great to do that. That's when you're supposed to do that, because then they spend the entire day thinking about you. Nah, you're doing it right, bro. Don't you dare apologize, Nick says. I'm gonna call you tonight and show you exactly what I think of your prank. Careless shivers. Is that a promise? Always. But I should get going. The next talk is starting soon. I love you, Carlos says, in what he's discovered is his automatic closing the calls between them. I love you too. Yep. Nick says, and Carlos can hear him smile over the phone before he hangs up. Hang on. Yeah, I think that's pretty much our closing is I love you and I love you too. And talk to you soon. Friday, October 10th. All right, Nick's back. They lie in bed in their usual post-coital positions, and Nick runs his fingers through Carlos's chest hair as he smiles against his shoulder. That was amazing, Carlos says, kissing Nick's head, who chuckles. It was. But we've had sex in some form every day this week. I think that's a new record. Hmm. Phone sex doesn't count, Carlos says, wanting to disagree, but knowing Nick is right. Fine, then we've had sex once this week, which is still a record if you're ignoring holidays apart. We were apart, so that time doesn't count. Carlos responds, grinning as he pulls Nick closer to him. Okay, Mr. Nitpicky. The point is that was still really nice despite everything we've done this week. Nick moves so his head is on Carlos's chest and smiles again. Phone sex isn't the same. I don't know how people do long distance. With great difficulty. Nick shakes his head. I don't either. And it makes me glad all over again that we don't have to. Then he stops and looks up at Carlos, smirking. So how many notes did you find? Oh, I'd have to count. I know you didn't find the ones under the bed or under the coffee table. What? Why would I ever look under there? You wouldn't. I just wanted to make sure there were some left for when I came home. Carlos thinks for a moment, not wanting to lose. That's so funny because if I'm thinking about this for myself, not that I am, of course, but we have a like storage coffee table, so like the lid of it comes up, which is also useful if you're deciding to eat in the living room, which I do often. Yeah, so you can elevate it, but then it also has, room inside for you to put things. We put board games in there. Um, but that's an interesting place to put that, is underneath there. Fun place for cats. When we first got it and we didn't really have anything to put in there, yeah, Draco would like hop in there and he'd like watch TV while we were eating, and then we'd have to like convince him to get. I love how I'm like doing arm motions that no one can see. I'm like, when we were like closing it, we would have to slightly push it until he was enough to where he was like, I can't fit in here anymore, and then he'd hop out before we could let it like slam down. There we go. Uh, Carlos thinks for a moment, not wanting to lose the contact of his husband against him. But his curiosity wins out, and he reluctantly slides out from under Nick and checks under the bed. Sure enough, a sticky note is taped to the bed frame on his side. He pulls it out and reads it. Text me the word but. What? Nick looks at him expectantly. Aren't you going to do what it says? Carlos grabs his phone, not quite sure what's happening, and dutifully sends the text. He hears Nick's phone ding from the bedside table, and Nick smirks as he picks it up, taps on it for a second, and puts it back down. Carlos's phone dings with a new text message. In a photo, he stares at Nick's bare ass and backside in what must have been a selfie in the hotel bathroom. Maybe what? Do you like it? Definitely. Carlos sliding back into bed, grabbing Nick's ass and moving him back against him before a thought occurred to him. What does the coffee table one say? You'll just have to find out. I'm trying to think. Carlos thinks for a second before grabbing his phone and sending another text. Nick's phone dings and he grabs it, reading the message and chuckling. Close enough, I suppose, Nick says, tapping for a bit before setting his phone back down. I'm impressed. Carlos receives another photo, seemingly taken at the same time in the same location as the first, but this time Nick's facing forward and smirking at the camera. Carlos stares at the photo. Good, I hope, Nick says, kissing Carlos's collarbone. Carlos sets his phone down and turns his attention to his husband, who's practically straddling. God, yes, but it can't compare to you here, right now. Good. Nick kisses him gently on the lips. Are we the kind of people who send each other pictures now? Carlos isn't sure how he feels about regularly taking photos in this manner, although he thinks he's probably happy to receive them. I feel like this was probably a one-time thing, Nick seems to think, unless it's something you want me to do more often. Carlos shakes his head. No, I'd rather just have you in real life, but I might save those pictures anyway. I would expect nothing less, babe, Nick says as he moves on top of Carlos, brushing their noses together and smiling before capturing his lips. That was cute and fun. All right, loose ends. How are we looking on time? Actually, really good. Oh, I'm so sorry, buddy. I forgot you came back in. Also, I didn't realize I had a plastic bag in here. You're fine, bud. Unless you want out. You want in? Yeah. All right, you're gonna stay in then. The man is very indecisive. Also, when I sit up, I have to readjust the camera because I can't just stay put. All right. Loose ends. Point of view. Carlos, approximate word count 2,700. Elliot visits San Francisco. Okay, I was curious what loose ends needed tying. And Elliot is definitely one of them. Also, I'm going to be on the BRB screen for just a second. Not that I'm actually going anywhere. And you're just going to hear me Make noises for a minute. Okay. And just like that, I'm back. Bye. Not even. No, and did that change things? It did. Okay. I noticed that like when I'm moving, my TV's wobbling, and it's because it's not actually sitting on my desk. It was like kind of off. So, you know, pro streamer. Loose ends. Thursday, May 7th, 2015. I have an email from Elliot. Carlos isn't sure why he said it out loud, but he's feeling both pleasantly surprised at it and afraid of why Elliot might be reaching out now after having not talked for so long. Make noises for a moment. Oh my. They were fine noises. I don't know. I mean, audience can tell me what they thought. Oh? Nick stands next to him and puts a hand on Carlos's back, seemingly unsure of how to react. That's a good thing, right? Maybe. That story, maybe. Carlos's hands shake as he clicks the message open. Don't mm, don't assign good or bad to things. Just let them be and roll with it. Want me to leave you alone, babe? Ooh. As I punch my mic right in its face. Actually, I did. I forgot. I have Gene on this. No. Carlos's other hand finds Nick's and moves it to his shoulder, holding it there. This is stupid. I don't know why I'm so nervous. You two haven't talked for a while. It seems natural to be a little nervous. Carlos quickly scans the email. It's extremely short, containing only a quick greeting and a note that he'd be in San Francisco early the following month, and asking if Carlos was around and interested in meeting up. How does he know I'm in San Francisco? You were in a tabloid. Carlos asks no one in particular, again wondering why he was voicing his thoughts out loud like this. Steve must have told him, who must have heard from Ben or something. I mean, he could have gotten it from any number of people, but also, you were in a tabloid, having been married, and it gave the exact location of your wedding. Granted, not saying that you have to live where you get married, but typically people do. Pat's jealous of Carlos now. Why would I be jealous of Carlos? You crazy? You crazy? What do I have to be jealous of? Goodness. I mean, aside from lipstick, how can I make my wedding to Dorian appear in a tabloid? You know? Okay, valid. And also, if anybody has an answer to that, feel free to tell me. Because honestly, that'd be amazing. Nick's hand squeezes his shoulder, and it's comforting. Is he visiting? Yeah, he wants to know if I want to meet up for food or something. Do you? Nick asks, and Carlos thinks he should be annoyed by Nick asking him such obvious questions, except it actually really helps at the moment. Sometimes it helps to voice like what you're thinking, even if you know what you're thinking and if everybody knows what you're thinking. Because also like hearing yourself say it out loud and, you know, I don't know. It would be nice to see him again, but it's been so long. Carlos also worries, for some reason, that Nick would be jealous. Quit with this. You're in a good, healthy relationship. Jealousy is not a factor for either of you anymore. Carlos, got eyes on you. But for Mr. Happy Go Lucky Pants over there that has had great relationships and a good family life and yada yada, jealousy doesn't really seem to be a thing for him. He seems real good. Real good about any choice that you make. Even though Nick is never jealous, and they've talked about this, and also they're married, that's also a pretty good kicker. Once the ring's on there, it's sorta a good sign that he's gonna stick around, kind of no matter what. That just means you'll have a lot to catch up on. It's nice to catch up with friends after so long. That is also true. I do like that with like certain friends that I have just like good repertoire with. It's really good to not talk for like years and then meet up and be like, oh my God, what's happened with you? And then be like, all right, see you again in another 2 years unless we meet up in like 2 weeks. Nick sounds wistful, and Carlos remembers how happy Nick had been when his undergrad friend Laura had been able to stick around a couple days after their wedding, and how nice Nick had said it was to really catch up with her again. Carlos also thinks that he doesn't really want to meet up with Elliot by himself, even though it doesn't seem fair to drag Nick along to what could be a very awkward reunion. I mean, isn't that kind of the great thing about having like autonomy? Is that you guys could go together and then Nick could get a work call if it gets awkward or weird and leave? Or if it's too awkward, you could both leave? Just me? Will you come with me? He asks, not daring to look at Nick's face. It's silly, but it would be nice if you were there for some reason. Of course, babe. Let me know what dates he'll be around, and I'll see what works with my schedule. Carlos nods, still hanging onto Nick's hand as he tries to type a response with one hand. Still not really sure how he feels about the whole thing. Carlos is a very unsure individual. Love him. He's great. But Carlos, Nick, I think someone at the hospital needs some emergency doctoring. Nick, oh, yes, you're right. Excuse me while I go do the doctory things. That foolproof. Like, literally. Oh my gosh. I am rewatching Sex in the City. And I'm on like season 2, and there's an episode called Freaks. Just talking about how all men are freaks. Um, and Miranda and Carrie go on like a double date, and one of the guys hasn't left Manhattan in like a decade, and Miranda's like, "All right, I'm done with this. I need to go feed my cat," which is like their code word for this date is going downhill. We need to leave. And Carrie rejected it and was like, "I thought you already fed your cat." Miranda's just like, "I need to feed it again." The most awkward exchange. I'm like, if I were ever on a date, don't know why I'd ever be on a date again, but if I were ever on a date again, um, and someone had like an awkward exchange like that, I'd be like, all right, I'm aware that this is some sort of code, so I'm just gonna go. If you liked how things were going, call me. But I don't think you did. So, later. Sunday, May 24th. Carlos fiddles with his phone, alternating between a desire to reach out for Nick's hand and feeling like it would make for an extremely awkward first impression if Elliot showed up and Carlos was holding hands with a guy. With your husband? So he settles for his phone instead, turning it around in his hands and staring at the table and trying to swallow the lump in his throat, while Nick sits silently but supportively next to him. So he settles for. Wow. Carlos? Carlos looks up to see Elliot walking towards him. He's older, and his hair is longer and pulled back into a ponytail. And he has a beard now, but he's still very much Elliot. And he's looking a lot better than Carlos would have expected given the last time he'd seen him in the hospital. Carlos thinks he notices a bit of a scar around one of his eyes, but otherwise, there isn't much evidence of the trauma that he'd been through. He realizes he's staring and shakes his head, standing and letting the joy of seeing Elliot again take over. Dude! Elliot holds his arms open, and Carlos accepts the invitation, wrapping him up in a hug. They've never done this before, but somehow it still feels like an appropriate greeting. Elliot pats his back before pulling away, smiling at him. You look really good. You seem like you're doing really well. Carlos blushes. I am, and you look good too. Wow. Okay, Carlos. I had a good plastic surgeon, Elliot says, laughing, and Carlos likes that he can joke about it now. He watches as Elliot glances over at Nick, who's slowly standing from his seat. This is Nick, my husband. Carlos isn't sure what reaction he expects, but he feels relieved anyway when Elliot just smiles and nods and holds out his hand, shaking Nick's hand cordially. It's very nice to meet you, Nick. You too, Nick says, wrapping an arm around Carlos's waist when Elliot releases his hand. Carlos was surprised to hear you were coming to town. Oh, yeah. Elliot looks a bit sheepish. I'm sorry for reaching out so suddenly like that, but work sent me here on a business trip, and I remembered hearing from Steve a few years back that you'd moved here with Adam, so I thought I'd reach out. I'm sorry I haven't done a good job keeping in touch. Honestly, most people don't. So you're kind of par for the course. Carlos shakes his head. Dude, that's mostly my fault. I stopped writing and I should have written sooner, but I just. Can I get you something to drink, Elliot? Nick says, and Carlos appreciates the interruption and how well Nick knows him. Coffee, tea, hot chocolate. A coffee would be nice, thank you. Something dark. 2 sugars. Got it. Drip coffee with 2 sugars. Because that's really the. I mean, I guess if they have like a blonde roast or whatever. Nick's hand squeezes Carlos's side before letting him go. Got it. Want another hot chocolate, babe? Carlos shakes his head, instead taking his seat again as Nick goes to rejoin the line at the counter. Elliot takes the seat next to Carlos. So, Elliot says, smiling at him after Nick's out of earshot, I'm glad you finally came out and found love. Even though Carlos had been expecting something like that, the abruptness of it still catches him by surprise. He reminds himself that Elliot had always been a bit no nonsense, and that's what had gotten him into the mess in the first place, and that Carlos had somehow always known that Elliot had known he was gay. Yeah, I. Well, I'm sure you don't want to hear the entire story, but Adam befriended Nick in med school, and we hit it off, and that was 5.5 years ago. We got married last summer. I'm sorry I didn't invite you to the wedding. But it was small, and I don't know. It was so small, it was written about in a tabloid. He's starting to ramble again, but Elliot just smiles and pats his arm, and the familiar feeling of it makes him feel like not much time has passed for them at all. You don't have to apologize. We hadn't talked in years. I wouldn't have expected an invitation. Besides, we left things a little rough in our last few emails. Carlos remembers the emails. He'd been on the verge of confessing his feelings to Elliot, but had deleted it all and instead just sent an update that didn't really say anything. Then Tom had outed him, and Steve had blown up at him, and then Steve had blown up at him, and the innocent question in Elliot's reply, "How are things going at the house?" hadn't seemed so innocent anymore. He hadn't responded, figuring that Elliot would reach out again at some point, but he never did, and that'd been the end of it. I'm sorry I never wrote back, Carlos says, not sure the words really convey the regret he feels at it. Elliot shakes his head. No, it's not your fault. I have to be honest. Steve told me everything, and I asked because I thought it might be a way to get you to start talking to me about it. I shouldn't have pushed like that. I will say, going in like a roundabout way like that, not always the best move. Like, let people come to you when they want to come to you about something. Don't be pushy. Which I get that like he's not being like an ass about it per se, but I don't know. I will also say that Carlos could have just been like, it's fine, or I don't want to talk about it right now. And then that could have been Elliot's cue to like cap it. So A little column A, little column B. I think we've established that Elliot is pushy. He's no nonsense. Also thinking about the Dan run, Elliot being pushy. Anyway, um, I shouldn't have pushed like that. But when I thought I'd started writing again, when I thought I'd start writing again, just to see how you were, Dan told me you two had started hooking up, and I figured you were getting the support you needed. So I just wanted to give you space, which is also appropriate. Hiding again, Bob. Um, I, oh, I will say I'm reading a book right now, and or I guess I just finished this book a couple days ago. But there was a section about like a sister being concerned for her other sister and going to like a common friend about it, and the friend's response A was that she wasn't going to like gossip about it, and B that when people are like not okay, um it's best to like give them time, give them space, and give them the opportunity to figure it out themselves. And then when it comes time to like offer a hand, do it then. Which I just has been in my mind like for the last few days. He shrugs, and then it had been so long, it felt like it might be awkward. So here we are. You were my first crush, dude. Carlos says before he even realizes what he's saying and immediately regrets the words. It's honest, and you guys are talking about your past and things that happened, and that is a real part of it, which is fine. Sorry, that isn't fair of me to say. The implied confession that Elliot and Dan had been talking suddenly sinks in, and he blushes at what that suggests. That's completely fair of you to say, Elliot says, and because you're too polite to ask despite the obvious opening I gave you, yeah, I'm gay. I had a crush on you too. But I'm really glad things worked out this way. Uh, why? Carlos tries to process all the information, even though it's really all things he feels like he already knew. Having it all confirmed at once is still a lot. That's fair. I'm gonna keep reading before giving notes. Well, for one, because you and Nick look so happy together that I would be a monster to want anything else for you. Fair, Elliot says, and Carlos blushes at that. But also because what could possibly have happened between? If we got together before the thing with Robert, we'd be long distance with a boyfriend off in another state, recovering with all sorts of medical issues, living at home with his overprotective parents, who you could never see. You would have been miserable. Make a point. I just counted and I got like $18 in tips. Woo! This one group gave me $10 alone. Congratulations, babe. Are you done? Are you coming home? Are you almost off, or are you off? Uh, Also, part of what clued me off about my TV not being in the same position is that I have to like look around it to read chat now. I don't know what happened in my office, but I think the Nissa got in my office and moved things. Um, Oreos. 18 seems low, but 10 from one group seems good. So congrats. Admittedly, I don't know what you do, so I have no idea what tip should be. Cats happened? Uh, Possibly cats. I'm probably going to say Nissa. We've also deduced that Nissa is probably stealing our spoons every time that I make a deal with it. So I probably either need to buy more spoons or stop making deals with the Nissa. Still cleaning. Um, and yes, Dorios does like food service stuff. I work at a smoothie place. Okay, there you go. So $18 is actually pretty good. It's pretty good for a night shift. especially like a Tuesday night shift. Um, yeah. Dorian and I are like we do talk about the disparity in like our pay because we still are like breadwinner, butter winner. Um, yeah, we were at dinner the other day. We were going over like what a 40-hour work week looks like for both of us, and the disparity is different. Even in just like tips, because yeah, I will say my tips are more than $18 for an hour. Then, um, well, for one, because I already read that. Carlos wants to object to that, but he's pretty sure Elliot's right. And afterward, what? We're not going to get together while I'm living with my parents. You wouldn't have put your life on hold waiting for me. So I'm really glad that you never told me and that I never told you because it meant you got to really live your life and move forward instead of dwelling on what could have been. I think I'm just used to tips when I was working as a waiter being higher, but that was table service and not like a smoothie place that I assume is counter service. Yeah, he works at a place that, people walk in and then instantly walk out. Because that's the way it's set up, not because it's like a terrible place. I realized how that sounded the second it came out of my mouth. Dorian makes good smoothies. He's given me ones on stream. Yeah, the 18 in tip seems good. Pretty decent Tuesday night. Should have mentioned 18 was just the cash tips. I get card tips once a month. Oh, that's true too. That's true too. Yeah. Carlos can feel the last of his regret over the situation melts away at the words, and at the realization that Elliot hadn't taken any of it personally. Dude, that's really nice of you to say. Elliot shrugs and pats his arm again. It's the truth. I'm truly happy for you. There is a universe where like you guys also could have talked about it. I just realized how hot I am. There is a universe where like you guys could have talked about it and had that mutual understanding and pretty much had this exact conversation sooner where you guys are like, I don't think I can do long distance. I don't think I can do long distance. Maybe if nothing happens, maybe once XYZ happens, yada yada. But you know. Funny funny because as a waiter I got tipped out nightly. But got my pay once a month and and my monthly pay was like one night of tips. Oh my god. That is uh yeah. Food service. On top of the fact that I could never do food. eh, Um yeah, I as soon as I found out like what that pay is, tips minimum wage was like $2 something. Yeah, it's always been a nightmare. Which is why I am the only person in my family that has never worked food service. The closest thing was working like in a grocery store, and I only count that because it's working around food. Granted, I guess I did work at Starbucks for a little bit, but even that I don't fully count. Because yeah, no, I am a very pragmatic person, which is why the second that I was out of high school, I was like, all right, I need to do something that makes me a lot of money in as little time possible. And here, ow! And here I am as a therapist. Years later, I gave myself about a 2 week summer vacation, and yeah, have since turning 18, always supported myself, whatever boyfriend I had, whatever animals we had, um, gone on like vacations and had like nice-ish stuff. So I was very much not playing the game of like being super broke in my like late teens and early 20s. I wasn't like rolling in it, but you know. That's ridiculous in a good way. It was winning at life. I wouldn't say I'm winning at life, but it was like, yeah, it was nice. And then inflation hit, and then like more life hit, and then my body also was like, oh, you can't do this forever. So, yeah. But, it definitely was nice that like I at one point had an apartment completely to myself, that I financed myself and was away from everybody, and not a lot of people can say that now. So, yeah, I'm really glad that I was at a point in my life that I could do that comfortably, which does make me feel a little bit hashtag winning at life. Uh, Elliot shrugs and pats his arm again. It's the truth. I'm truly happy for you. Carlos suddenly realizes that Nick had been gone for a while and looks over at the storefront. Nick's standing by the pickup counter watching the two of them, and Carlos realizes he'd been waiting for them to finish their conversation before returning with the coffee. Nick blushes at having been caught and grabs a cup from the counter and returns to their table. I mean, sorry, Nick says, handing the cup to Elliot and sitting back down next to Carlos. There was a line. You're such a bad liar. Which once again, also same. I can't do a thing about my face. Carlos lets Nick have it, grabbing his hand instead and holding it between them. So you said you were here because of work? Elliot sips his coffee. Oh yeah, I work for GLAD in New York City, and they wanted me to come down and coordinate some stuff for the San Francisco Pride Parade next month. Oh, also super cool. Just because also, like I said, I was listening to Handsome. This year the Chicago Pride Parade is the like coordinators, I guess, for it are Fortune Themester and her wife Jax. So that's super cool. We know, unfortunately. I mean, it works well in a lot of people's favor because you always know how I'm feeling. Um, there's two. I also get that that was another joke about my face being unfortunate. The conversation flows smoothly from there. Now that everything is out in the open, Elliot catches Carlos up on his eventual graduation from UNCG and his job in New York, and Carlos catches Elliot up on moving to San Francisco with Adam and meeting Nick, and about his own job. He doesn't even realize how long they'd been there. They'd been on. Papa. Take two. He doesn't even realize how long they've been talking until Nick gets up and returns with some food from a few different shops. Sorry, Nick says as he drops boxes and utensils on the table. I didn't want to interrupt the conversation, so I just got a few different things. There's a grilled cheese sandwich with tomato soup. Oh my god. That sounds really good. Some roast chicken with sides and some Japanese salads that Carlos really likes, but I can get something else if none of it's to your liking. Dude, Carlos doesn't have words for how appreciative he feels, even though he knows how considerate Nick is by now. Nick just smiles at him and kisses him quickly as he sits down again. And Carlos knows that he knows what he's trying to say. No, thank you, Elliot says, opening the box with the chicken. This. So, okay. Elliot opened the box with the chicken. The salad was already predetermined for Carlos. And then Nick gets the grilled cheese that I just fawned over. Cool. I meant the can't do anything about it part. Oh, you. I hadn't visited the ferry building yet, so I'm glad you suggested it. Carlos nods and grabs the salad as Nick takes the sandwich. So, are you seeing anyone? Carlos isn't really sure if he should ask, but he's feeling comfortable enough with how the conversation's going to risk it. Not at the moment, Elliot says as he cuts into the chicken. I dated a few guys over the years, but right now I'm just married to my job, so there hasn't been anything serious. I feel like your job would offer a larger dating pool. But that's, just me. Carlos feels a bit guilty about that for some reason. I mean, he will find his story when he finds it in the way that he finds it. Even though he agrees with everything Elliot had said earlier. Well, any guy would be lucky to have you, so I'm sure you'll find someone eventually. Uh huh. Elliot blushes at that. Thanks, Carlos. I don't think I'd blush at that. Granted, I have a different mindset. So, you know. The conversation continues through dinner and the subsequent walk down the. Bro, you put so many words in this that I can't say. Down the. And. And anybody that wants to correct me can suck it. This is my stream. And eventually back to Elliot's hotel. And as they stand in front of the doors and say their goodbyes, Carlos wonders how he was ever worried about the meeting. I'll let you know when Adam's free, Carlos says, pulling Elliot in for another hug. His schedule's a bit more unpredictable than Nick's, but we should be able to get together before you leave. Elliot pats his back before letting him go. Thanks. It was really good to see you again today. And it was really nice to meet you too, Nick. Likewise, Nick says, shaking his hand again. Good night, Elliot says, patting Carlos's arm again before disappearing into the hotel lobby. Carlos takes Nick's hand and leads the way back to their condo, deep in thought and with a smile on his face. Nick doesn't interrupt, of course, just squeezing his hand and leaning towards him as they walk. I don't know why some of those sentences I can't trail together. I hear myself reading it and I'm really glad this happened, Carlos says finally. Nick smiles at him. I can tell. You look a lot less stressed than you'd been since he emailed. Carlos hadn't realized it had been that obvious, but he reminded himself that Nick also knows him better than anyone else at this point, including Adam. I think it was just the closure that I needed, that I hadn't realized I needed. I'm glad. And thank you for coming and sitting through all of that today and taking care of us and getting dinner and being you. Babe. Nick releases his hand and slides it around his waist instead. You know I would do anything for you. But you also say that today was torture. I had a really nice time. It was really nice to meet Elliot and talk to him and hear about New York City. Regret not moving there now? Carlos isn't sure why he's asking. It's been a long time since his insecurities about Nick's past have crept back in. Nick stops walking, looking into Carlos's eyes and shaking his head. Never, babe. Ignoring the fact that I would be miserable there because big cities like that really aren't my thing, which Elliot's story is pretty much all confirmed. I would also be miserable there because I wouldn't have you. I'm thankful every day that I have you, and I never want anything else. Carlos kisses him gently, but trying to pour all the love he can into it. I love you, Nick, so much, and I'm thankful every day for you too. Nick smiles and takes Carlos's hand as they start walking again. I love you too, so much. Oh, unlocked Elliot. Okay. How are we doing on time? Wow, we're only at 2 hours. We still have fond. Ooh, fondness. Hello. And extra ficklets before breaking the surface, which I don't think we'll get to today. Mostly because that's jettisoning so far in the future. I feel like this one's going to be a long one. Probably going to go through a little bit of what's all going on here. But we'll see. Fondness. Point of view, Nick. Okay. Nick and Adam spend their day off together. Fondness. Friday, September 16th. You really don't have to walk me to work on your days off, Carlos says, stopping at the door and turning to Nick. Nick just shrugs. We usually walk to work together when we can, and it's nice out, and it's good to get you out of the house anyway. Well, I appreciate it. Carlos smiles and quickly kisses him. Have a nice day hanging out with Adam. Nick nods and watches them walk through the doors before walking back to their condo. Still, Friday, September 16th. Adam's sitting on their couch when Nick returns playing Smash. Hey dude, sorry, I just let myself in. Our home is your home, Adam, Nick says, kicking off his shoes. You're always welcome here. Adam pauses the game and looks at him. Still, it's been a while since it's just been the two of us, and I didn't realize you were walking with Carlos to work. I could have waited in the hallway. Nick shakes his head. Shush. More than fine. He takes a seat next to Adam on the couch. What did you feel like today? Adam seems to think. I'm not really sure. I feel like I love Adam in his classes. I don't know what it is. Adam is smashing. That means a couple of things. If it's British, it means that he's amazing. If it's American, I mean, Adam can be smashing alone on the couch in his best friend's apartment. You know. Uh, Also, Dorian just got new glasses, and his frames, like, oh, they're very cute on him. And he got, like, this will help me think of the idea. He got prescription sunglasses, which is very exciting because we're planning on doing dog days at the zoo. So he's going to be able to do that without needing to like torture his eyes. Just seeing Adam in his glasses reminded me of that. uh, I feel like the only thing we ever, I feel like the only thing we ever did, just the two of us, were study or eat. And although I guess we could read some research papers together now, that feels like somewhat of a waste of a day off. It's kind of nice that we're so used to having Carlos around. That isn't weird to say. Adam shakes his head. Absolutely not. I hope I'm not taking up too much of his time. I will say, like, it's important to have like couple things, friend things, and then like group things. Like, I feel like there's definitely stuff that like Matt and I have that's not really Dorian adjacent, and then like there's Dorian and I time and stuff that we do that like we're very specifically not inclusive of Mad with. Um, and I'm positive that Dorian and Mad have like time and stuff that they have. Actually, I factually know that they do. Their bonding is mostly over food because I hate food. So I'll be like on a walk with one of them and they'll start talking about how like they went out to XYZ place together earlier in the day. Yeah, so I know that that's at least one of their things. I hope I'm not taking up too much of his time, Nick says, feeling a bit guilty now. Ever since we moved in together, I feel like you've been getting less time with just the two of you. Dude, he's your husband. Of course you two should spend most of your time together. That helps a bit. Still, he's your best friend. And I'm your best friend, and this is the first alone time we've had together in years. So stop worrying about it, and let's figure out plans for the day. Nick nods, pushing aside his guilt, and instead just feeling appreciative that both Adam and Carlos are in his life. We could go walk. I actually haven't hit up Pier 39 yet, and have been thinking it could be interesting to do one of the most. And thinking. Take two. We could go walk. I actually haven't hit up Pier 39 yet, and have been thinking it could be interesting to do one of the most touristy things in the city. It's interesting how much walking they do in this. Just knowing the creator and some of his walking escapades. Adam grins. You're not missing much, dude. We took my parents to when we first moved here, and it was pretty much all shops and restaurants, although the sea lions might be worth a visit. And some of the restaurants seem like they could be decent. So, yeah, we could definitely start there. I walked everywhere when I lived in San Francisco. So did most of the people I knew. That's fair. See, like I don't know. I guess being in like the part of the country that I am, like walking culture isn't as much of a thing. Um, if you are like going out and walking, you either like live deep in the city or you're on like a night out or something. Because yeah, it's really difficult to like walk anywhere and do anything. San Fran's walking and biking culture if you live in the city. Yeah. See, that's part of why like I feel like I would enjoy maybe now well nowadays maybe Uber. Yeah. That's why I feel like I would like actually living in a city because I want to be able to like walk to places and do those things. And Dorian's the same way where he's like he would love to be able to like walk down the street to a grocery store and then like, walk a few blocks to go to a restaurant or whatever. But his idea of that is more like living in a small Spanish village. Whereas mine's like, let's go to a big city. So, you know, we're compromising by moving to a semi bigger city between a bunch of other big cities, which doesn't feel like as much of a compromise, but I'm happy with it. We could take a cable car. Nick's always liked watching them as they roll past him on the street, but he realizes he's never been on one. Adam laughs. I actually haven't done that yet. Sure, sounds like a plan. Still, Friday. They walk to the cable car stop together and stand in line, and Nick shifts uncomfortably as a sea of people move around him. You okay, dude? Adam looks at him with concern, noticing his discomfort. Yeah, well, you know that I don't really like crowds, and I forgot how busy Union Square was. Nick feels like his discomfort is a bit silly, especially given how much he likes clubbing. But he thinks that clubs have a preordained activity that he can settle into as opposed to crowds of strangers in more public areas, where he just always feels awkward and out of place. That's fair. Being in like a crowd in public, uncomfortable. Being in like a nightclub or a bar or something where like you have a certain activity or like things that make everyone sort of there for a common goal ish, much more comfortable. We can walk instead. We don't have to take the cable car. Nick shakes his head. No, the next car is coming and it'll be fine once we're out of Union Square. He counts his blessing that Wade and Laura had talked him out of moving to New York City. Pier 39 will probably also be crowded. Are you sure you want to do this? Adam puts a hand on his shoulder, and it's comforting. Yeah, there's more places to duck out there if I get overwhelmed, right? Adam nods as the cable car arrives and they pile in. Still, the ride definitely helps him calm down, and they walk the few blocks from the end of the line to the pier entrance, where large blue flags are fluttering in the wind. It doesn't look too busy, which makes Nick feel a bit better. Oh, I do want to like be close to the ocean and you know, go to more things like this. So what should we do first? He asks, not really knowing much about what's here. Sea lions? Sure, Adam says, and Nick follows him through the relatively empty pier. They lean against the railing, looking out over the animals sunning themselves on wooden platforms. Nick's not sure what he expected, but it wasn't this. He watches a couple of the larger ones get into a bit of a tussle before settling down again. They're not penned in? No, bro. They're like by water. Only time I've walked a bunch was in college around campus, which was downtown. So I would walk a mile to get boba, for example. There, I feel like we didn't take as much advantage. Granted, also like the panini and everything, we didn't take as much advantage of the fact that we lived a on Route 66, and b like right next to downtown. Um, when we were in Albuquerque, I think that would have been fun. I like tried walking Central like once or twice, but obviously the that I tried that with was a big old stick in the mud, um, and complained about it always being too hot or too sunny or wanting to just like duck into a bar, which made it far less fun to even try. I don't think so, Adam says, reading one of the plaques, and Nick joins him. They apparently just like to come hang out around here, so they have their platforms that they lie on. I was expecting something more like the bison in Golden Gate Park, although I guess the only difference is that the bison are penned in. Adam looks surprised. There are bison in Golden Gate Park? Nick chuckles. Yeah, we took my nephew to the park when they visited, uh, and and we were surprised too. There's a large enclosure, and they're just in there hanging out. It's too bad that the park's far from here, or we could go check those out too. They're honestly less interesting than the sea lions. I think it'd be cool to see. I don't know if it'd be something interesting to watch. Nick says, looking back over the water again. Although I guess the novelty of it is interesting. Yeah. Baby David didn't seem too impressed, but he was in the stage where he was into more attention grabbing things. Mm. Adam laughs. I keep selfishly hoping that Em and Dimitri have a kid because I think it'd be nice to be an uncle. It is pretty nice. He looks over at Nick, seemingly contemplative for a second before looking out over the water again. And one day a dad. But that would require me to have a wife first. So, uncle for now. I mean, a wife is not required for a child. Uh, my manager saw what time I just clocked out, and he's texting me saying sorry he didn't stay, and he feels bad. Like, it's no biggie. I stayed an extra 10 minutes and I get paid for that. So, fair enough. I mean, well, I don't know. It was only an extra 10 minutes, but also, I feel like, given the, like, previous week that you had at work, oh no, maybe you could have made this day a little bit easier. That's just me. Nick feels like he knows what's on Adam's mind, but doesn't want to answer the question without being explicitly asked. If they come visit again, we'll try to make sure there's a day when you're free, he says instead. You're absolutely welcome to join us. Adam shakes his head. They're your family, dude. I don't want to crash your time together. Adam, since when have you been anything but welcome in my life? And Carlos's life. My brother's family is just an extension of that. Still, Adam says, but he's smiling now. And not that I don't appreciate it, but your brother lives so far away and visits so rarely. Same. I guess I just want to have a kid to help raise where I can be a more regular part of their life. And Em and Dimitri aren't so far away that it would be impractical. Nick's pretty sure Carlos would take the opportunity to tease Adam about his biological clock or something, but he takes a more practical stance instead. You could adopt or do surrogacy. Plenty of people are single dads, and besides, you have me and Carlos to help you out. Uh, fair enough. I don't know. There was a teeny tiny period in my life where I considered that. I considered like I want to be a dad over being like a husband or anything like that. So I might just go at it alone. Um, don't think that's in my cards really anymore. But there was a period where I did have that contemplation. Adam looks at him again with the same contemplative look, but then shakes his head. You know what my work schedule's like. They'd end up in childcare most days, or with the two of you many nights, and that's not fair to anyone, especially the kid. I think I really need a wife before I start really thinking about having kids, although maybe that thinking is also a little unfair to her. I was about to say, like, that's a. You might need to think about that a little bit more if your idea of having a wife is having childcare for your kid. That doesn't seem unfair. It's not like you'd be foisting all child rearing responsibilities to her. You'd just be trading off as needed. Nick says, as he tries to consider whether he should actually just answer the implied question. Adam interrupts his thoughts before he can. I guess that's fair. Want to wander for a bit? Want accent, my accent. Want to wander for a bit? I think there's an arcade somewhere further in. We could see if there's any foosball or something. That sounds good, Nick says. The sea lions aren't captivating enough for me to want to stand here staring at them. Then he smirks. Are you gonna win me a giant stuffed animal at skee ball? Adam laughs. You're overestimating my arcade game skills, dude. Carlos probably could though. Adam's more worried because he works in the ER and has irregular hours, not because wife equals free childcare. Fair enough. Um, yeah, no, it's definitely a thought. I know that, especially like with young kids, the idea of childcare though is such a thing because it's so like if you have to be a family where both parents work, it's so expensive that most of the time it's not worth it to have both parents work. Um, I have a friend who like she was telling me the story about her like picking her son up from daycare or from like the grandma's house or something, and he asked like why she had to go to work every day, and her answer was, "Well, that way we can afford childcare for you." And then she heard herself say it and was like, "This makes no sense." So then she went home and like actually looked at what she was making. She's like, yeah, no, all of my money, with the exception of like a teeny tiny bit, was just going to paying people to watch their child. So she ended up just not working because it was pretty much the same money. But then at least one parent got to be home with their child and more stability for her son. Uh, I think everyone in San Fran I knew with kids had childcare, and also childcare there costs like 30,000 a year. Oh, no, I can't. And has waiting lists you have to apply for before the kid's even born. But that was like all. But this was like all couples where both parents were in tech, so that expense was worth it. I am outside the tech world, so I know that it like no. I assume. I've always assumed that it makes relatively good money. So 30,000 tech is a screwed up world. I mean I feel like most workplaces could say the same thing just in different areas. But yeah, it's goes above my head. I would like to know how to like do more techie stuff, but never had a knack for it. In San Fran, if you make less than 118K, you're technically under the poverty line as a family of four. That is excessive. Oh, and that number is from 2018. Yeah, no. We would definitely be well below the poverty line. So it's higher now. Yeah. Yeah, we'd be below the poverty line. I think we'd be below the poverty line for two people. Tech is screwed up. I mean, but you're still in it. Hello. Come on. No. Also, did your like project thingy that you were talking about earlier in the week um get finished and good? That's why I left the city. Fair enough. Fair enough. Uh, my brain just going off into like work modes and other. I don't remember what project thingy I was talking about now. You were telling us about a project you were working on where someone had. Bro, you gotta give me more details about your life. than some of the things you give me when we talk. Because what I remember is you said someone from your team had something that I translated as a deliverable that wasn't done for a project due before we finished playing our game. And that's the majority of what I know about it. Because someone's Mr. Vague when I ask him about his life. Anyway, while you think about that for a second. Yeah, it's done. Just late, but it's fine. Um, Nick thinks to himself that he should bring Carlos here sometime to see if there's truth in Adam's statement, and gently pats Adam on the back before following him further into the pier. Later, the arcade doesn't have a foosball table, but Adam and Nick play a few rounds of air hockey before. Oh, so much better! Air hockey is so much better. Ugh. We actually had like an air hockey table for quite a while, and that was always fun until like the air pump or whatever on it broke. Before finding a seafood restaurant facing the bay that doesn't seem too crowded, and sitting down for lunch. I can't get comfortable. Ooh, pretty. The conversation and food are both pleasant, but the subject of stuffed animals comes up again, which leads back to the topic of Nick's nephew, and Nick decides he's done beating around the bush. You can ask, you know. What? Adam looks confused, then concerned. Ask what? Nick smirks. The question that you've been wanting to ask me ever since kids first came up. Adam shakes his head. It's rude. It's expected right after getting married. So, I mean, Adam, we've been friends for how long? Nick says, but he thinks he understands now why Adam isn't broaching the topic. I think there's no topic of discussion that's inappropriate or out of line between us. Adam nods and blushes. Nick wonders what topic Adam has in mind. Fine. Are you and Carlos thinking of having kids? This is a long answer. Nick feels a bit of satisfaction at having guessed correctly, even though he thinks it's been fairly obvious. We've talked about it, and we're not having kids. I've always been fairly indifferent to the idea, not because I don't want kids or anything, but because I know I'd be perfectly happy both ways. I guess I just don't feel the same urge to be a father or an uncle that you do. And when we discussed it, Carlos was in his phase where he was really separating out his own wants and desires from the things he felt like were expected of him. And he felt like having kids were something that were more expected of him, so he decided he'd prefer not to have kids. Maybe as a bit of an act of rebellion. I mean, plus, with the idea not to have kids, you can always change your mind later. Once you have a kid, you can't change your mind. But with this, with the idea not to have a kid, that can always change. It's a lot longer explanation than maybe the question had warranted, and Adam nods. That makes sense. I'm glad he's really living the life he wants now. And I feel like a lot of that's thanks to you. So, thank you. Hey, Nick feels like he should just take the compliment, but he can't stand when Adam undervalues his own contributions. It's thanks to you too, you know. You've been there for him since the beginning of his journey, and you've always been so supportive of him, of both of us. He's comfortable with himself and his life now because of you too. Adam blushes. Thanks, dude. That means a lot. Nick smiles and watches Adam take another bite of his sandwich. Carlos would be an amazing dad, though. Adam nods in agreement and swallows before speaking. He would. I guess I just always assumed he'd want kids, and he hadn't mentioned adoption or anything to me, so I didn't want to ask in case it was a divisive topic between the two of you or something. I guess I never really knew how you felt about it. Nick chuckles. And that's because I didn't really have an opinion on the matter, so it just means you knew me really well. Adam blushes again before staring out at the water, thinking, if I ever get married and have kids, I'd like you and Carlos to be a big part of their lives. Carlos is already my brother, so I guess it wouldn't be so strange, but you're also really important to me, dude. And I want you to be important to my eventual family, too. He pauses, then looks guilty. As long as that's okay with you two. Something you'd want. Nick pats Adam's hand. I shouldn't speak for Carlos, but I know he'd be thrilled to be an uncle. And I'd be honored to be included as well. So, absolutely, Adam. Adam nods. Okay, um, I love you, dude. It doesn't really surprise Nick to hear because Adam and Carlos say it to each other all the time. And Nick feels like he and Adam have always had a similarly close relationship. But it's still really nice to have it stated out loud. I love you too, Adam. Even later, Adam talks Nick into heading to Golden Gate Park after lunch, and they stand together around the buffalo paddock, watching the bison. You're sure those are bison? Adam says, and Nick suddenly isn't sure anymore. All right, side story, real quick, about misconstruing animals. So I have to take those out real quick while I'm telling this. Um, so my sister, I love my sister so much. She's great. My sister and my nephew and her husband went to the Denver Zoo, and they were just going through. And the Denver Zoo is side story about bison, not specifically about bison, about misconstruing animals. Um, and the Denver Zoo, if you've never been, is set up to be like an around the world experience. So it obviously has like different areas of Africa, different areas of Asia, all sort of lined up with not necessarily where they'd be on the map, but as close as you can get between like country lines and whatever. It's a really cool place. Um, and so they get to Asia, like they're bridging Africa to Asia. And my sister walks and sees um that's pretty common for zoos, I think. Yeah, more or less it is. Depending. I know that I've been to a couple zoos, mostly ones that are like local areas where they like mostly go through like the plains or go through like different sections of like the part of the country and or whatever. But so they get to the part where they're kind of bridging Africa and Asia. Cool. And I know very specifically where this is. It's like right next to the elephants. And my sister walks up, looks there, mind you, areas that bridge like Africa, Asia, whatever. Typically very like sandy, hot places. Um, and my sister, dead ass, goes, "Oh my god, that is a huge llama!" And my brother in law turns over and then looks at her and says, "That's because that's a camel." Oh, very funny. Especially when you think about like how camels and llamas look and their size disparity. What does she think a llama is? I don't know. Yeah, it is hilarious and is a joke every time that we go there. It's great. Oh, but this made me think of that. Camels are cute though. They are cute enough. I don't want to get like very close to one, I don't think. But they're cute enough. Pretty sure. Nick looks around for some sort of sign. There was a plaque around here last time that said they were bison, but I guess the directional signs we saw also said buffalo paddock. So I could be misremembering. They do eventually find a sign, and Adam looks at it confused. You're right, they're bison. The park is just being confusing. I mean, bison, buffalo. I can see that one. I can see like how they're similar enough in oh my god, class, phylum, species. Yeah, in that area to be essentially seen as the same thing by at least like the parks department. They should call it the Bay Bridge Park Buffalo Paddock, Nick says, smirking, just to be extra confusing. Adam shakes his head. Remember the argument that time my parents and M were here about which bridge was better? I do remember that, Nick chuckles. I agreed with your parents that the Golden Gate Bridge was the better one because it was pedestrian friendly. Adam laughs. Yeah, but the Bay Bridge was recently rebuilt, so it's theoretically safer. Also, it has those fun programmable lights on it now. Ooh, I didn't realize that was a thing. I thoroughly enjoy bridges. I like had this whole aesthetic in my head when I had my own apartment of like wanting to have like different famous bridges like lit up um on all of my walls. It was such a good idea. And now Dorian and I have such different styles that it would clash with absolutely everything. I might get that for my office, but I forget the story, but the plaque explains the name. Oh no, they've renamed the paddock. It's now the Bison Paddock. Oh, okay. Well, at least they get their story straight now. They probably played this game and were like, you know what? We fucked up. We make no sense. Hmm. I'm not sure we can be friends anymore, Nick says, smirking. The Golden Gate Bridge goes to Marin and the Redwoods. The Bay Bridge goes to Sacramento. Who wants to go there? Adam shakes his head, smiling, but seemingly distracted by something else now. Right. Okay, now what? Um, Adam shifts uncomfortably. Sorry, this really isn't my place at all. And it's honestly probably not something you should talk about either. Adam, I told you that you can talk to me about anything, Nick says, but wondering if it's about Carlos. Fine, but tell me off if this is actually inappropriate for me to ask. He pauses, still seemingly reconsidering before continuing. Have you talked to Carlos about his parents? Huh. Oh, sorry, bud. My laugh woke him up. Ooh, this place looks pretty in spite of it being incorrect. Why did you like the fact that it made no sense? Ooh. All right, this is going on the list. The buffalo paddock. Hey, wait, no, 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 sir. Golden Gate Park is gorgeous. Yes. Um, Number 8, the buffalo paddock, sir. Go to their main page. Go to their main page, and it says buffalo paddock. Um, okay, this is going on the list. I now have this running list of dates and places and things that Dorian and I need to do. Um, and that's making it. Oh, do you want out? Go ahead. All right. Um, oh, the yawns are coming. Because it's 9, and we've been going for 2.5 hours. Okay. Nick nods. Technically, yes. I've never pushed on the topic after making a bit of a misstep the first time it came up because it's something I think still really upsets him. And they came up briefly at our wedding, but he's told me he came out to them and they're not in his life anymore. And as far as I know, he hasn't spoken to either of them or his brothers since then. Same, minus the sibling thing. I mean, not specifically about coming out. That's from the they're not in his life anymore, and as far as I know, they haven't spoken. That's about the extent of the discussion we've had. Right. Adam seems disappointed by that somehow. I guess I was just hoping that he'd talked it out with you. It seems not good for him to keep his feelings about what happened inside like that, but I've never brought it up either for the same reasons. He told me he didn't want to talk about it when it happened and then just never brought it up again. And that's fine. I think I could be projecting, but I think that's fine. If it makes you feel better, he and I both see a therapist fairly regularly, and I would be surprised if it hasn't come up there. Really? Nick's pretty sure it has, but he also wonders how much of his assumption is just his desire to see Carlos reconcile with his family. Don't have that. Don't have that. Mm. I hate when I appreciate your reaction. This will matter later. Good to know. I hate that. I hate that so much. Don't want that for people. Don't just want people to like, oh, I want your family to be in your life. No, sometimes like family is not in your life because they just shouldn't be. Like, and whatever you're imagining this looks like is probably not what it will actually look like. For, like, in this instance, for Carlos to reconcile with his family needs to reconcile with their behavior, with their reaction. I will go back and go through that chapter eventually, but I'm obviously not in a place to do that right now when just this sets me off. Um yeah, no, they need to come to grips and terms with themselves. And even after that, it's not on Carlos to forgive them or to decide that he wants them in his life anymore. If he decides that what they did and how they responded and how they reacted was unacceptable, period, end of sentence, point blank, goodbye, see you later. Nope, goodbye. Done. Um yeah, that's nope. Don't want that for anyone ever. If people have taken their family out of their life, then all you need to do is good for you. Glad you have boundaries. Move on from it. If they don't want to talk about it, never press it. If they want to talk about it, listen without judgment. That's it. Preach, daddy. I may be projecting, and I'm aware of that. So it's okay. Because I have the terms to describe what I'm doing. So that makes it psychologically okay. um, even if just so Carlos would no longer have to carry that pain inside him. Uh, Depending on where I can't speak for Carlos, but depending on where he's at, that pain might not exist, and if it is, it might be less than having his family in his life. So, gotta pick your poison. Sometimes this is the better pain to have. That So also in my like rewatching Sex in the City, I also rewatched and Just Like That because the new season is filming. Will not be out for another year, but is filming. And there is a part where Harry is talking about lose spoiler alert, it's episode 1. But there's a part where Carrie's talking about losing her husband and that there feels like there's a hole inside you because that thing is missing. And I feel like this can be somewhat similar, is that like when you, that was my eye itching, I'm not crying, I swear. Um, that when you have to create a separation with you and your family, there is like a mourning and sort of a loss that's there. Um, and carrying that pain inside him, Carrie talks about how that pain doesn't go away. Like that hole doesn't fill, it doesn't go away. What happens instead is that life grows around it, and you grow so big that the hole feels smaller. So, same thing here. Same thing here. Oh, oh, I didn't know that, Adam says, and Nick can tell that that helps. I know he was really close to his brothers, so I've just always worried, I guess. That's a really nice way of putting it. Yeah, growing larger than your pain. Having so much life that, like, whatever is no longer in your life is less um less significant in the sense that it doesn't overwhelm you. He shakes his head. Sorry. It's our day off together and I'm spending it interrogating you about Carlos. Yeah, like we haven't had a ton of other conversations today about other things too. Nick says, not minding at all. But it's really fine. When we catch each other at work, it's work talk, and then our non work time has been the three of us, so we haven't really had a chance to discuss things like this. You mean gossip about your husband and best friend? I also feel bad talking about him while he's not here. I mean, you shouldn't, because this is what people do. People talk about other people, especially because you're doing it in a way, in a manner of like you both being concerned and you're asking about like their married life and stuff like that. It's totally normal. All of this is normal conversation. Adam says, but still looking a bit more comfortable now. Well, neither of us are going to broach the topic with him, right? Adam shakes his head. Doesn't feel like my place. And it doesn't feel like mine either, Nick agrees. So I think it's reasonable for us to discuss now. I can't imagine that what it's like to lose your family like that just because of your sexuality. But I think but I think all we can do is be supportive and listen if he ever does want to talk about it. That's right. That's all you can do is just listen and don't judge anything about the situation. You'd be surprised the stupid reasons that families don't stay together. Right, Adam says, nodding as he turns back to the bison. Want to keep watching the not buffalo? Or do you want to walk a bit more? I never mind walking, Nick says, and I think I'm done with the bisonalo. It's a nice day out. Let's wander to the eastern edge of the park and then find a bus back. Sounds like a plan, dude. Later, Nick and Adam pack up. Nick and Adam pick up Carlos together after work, meeting him outside the building. Carlos grins at the two of them. Well, this is a nice surprise, he says, kissing Nick. How was your day off? Really nice, Nick says. We went to Pier 39 and saw the sea lions, and that led us to Golden Gate Park to see the bison, and then we just walked around the park for a while. Sounds like you two were all over the city today, then, Carlos says, taking Nick's hand and starting back towards their condo. The three of us really haven't had an outdoor city day in a while. That wasn't like running, or ice cream, or a picnic. I have next Sunday off, and I'll probably not have a wrecked sleep schedule for it since Saturday's a day shift, Adam says. I'm very happy to do this again. I might take you up on that, Chico. Nick can't help but think back to the conversation he and Adam had had in the park, and contrasts the happy, relaxed Carlos holding his hand now with the one he remembers from the times Carlos's parents have come up. He feels a bit of guilt for some reason that that he can't make that that he can't make that particular situation better for the man he loves more than anything in the world. He settles for squeezing Carlos's hand instead. I'm always here for you, babe, he thinks, and I love you. Carlos turns and smiles at him, and he knows that Carlos already knows. Yes, we know you have opinions on that. That's why I didn't voice anything. But just in case, he tells himself he's going to make sure and show him tonight. Mm. That does have a smaller word count, but I think I'm going to call it. Yeah, I think I'm going to call it for here because we've actually made it almost 3 hours. The like extra ficlet is 4,000 words. The extra fluffs are only 800, but I still would rather probably put these two together and then see what's up in 2020. Gee, I wonder how that year is going to go. Thanks for streaming. Thank you for coming. Go spend time with your boy. Is he home? I'm curious. Oh, well, my phone's dead. So. And I don't think he put it in chat if he was home. But yeah, I'm going to go spend time with him. Maybe end up watching something, rounding out the night. Tell him a little bit more about my day. Hear about his day. All that fun coupley jazz. But yes, I should probably actually turn on some of that sound so there's a little bit of something playing. But yes, so basic housekeeping. If you're watching this as a VOD, if you're over on Twitch, or if you're not watching this as a VOD on Twitch, feel free to leave me a follow. I'm a pretty fun time, and I'm here semi-frequently. If you're watching this on YouTube, feel free to leave a like for this and subscribe over on YouTube. I will have a short coming out tomorrow. I'll be back on Thursday. I might end up streaming tomorrow. I'm not quite sure, but I will definitely be streaming on Thursday. We will be doing more Fallout. It's been a couple weeks since I did that, and I realized that I ended in a... Can I guide the raid to Josh? I think on Twitch it might just be you and I, but sure, why not? Sick. Brain. Yeah, and then normal videos for the weekend. So, cool. I guess we'll go ahead and raid. So give me a chance to... Actually, this is perfect because I've been wanting to test out how well this will work. Oop, did that not work? Hang on. Let me... All right, so for over on YouTube, I will see you guys next time. Bye! And we're ending that stream. Perfect.